It just goes to show that out of the worst moments, so much good can happen and we can grow, we can change, we can move forward in big leaps.
Welcome to the Smart Talk series, the show for professionals who want strategies, tips, and real talk about all things PR, marketing, and social media. Your host is Melissa Vella Williamson, an award winning, accredited, and nationally recognized PR pro and communication thought leader. And now, your host, Melissa Vella Williamson.
Hello and welcome to the Smart Talk series. I'm Melissa Vella Williamson. This season, our focus is on leveraging milestone moments. Today, I'm joined by Karen Swim, APR. Karen is the president of Solo PR Pro, an organization for PR professionals who work independently, run small agencies, or in-house teams. She's also the founder of PR firm Words for Hire. Welcome, Karen.
Hello, Melissa. Thank you so much for having me on today.
I'm so delighted we get to talk in this way, Karen. I really admire what you do and a lot of what you stand for. So we want to learn more about you. Tell us about your background and what your career focus is like today.
Absolutely, I'd love to. So, I'm one of those people who took the winding, crooked path to public relations. And like everyone, I'm sure, believes this that every step of the journey led you to the moment that you're in right now. So, I started my career working in healthcare. I loved it. Still to this day love healthcare. I think I am a science nerd at heart, but also love that administration and being able to figure out systems and how to make things work. So I did a number of jobs in the healthcare sector, including sales and managing sales teams in California, and then moving into marketing and being in charge of 7 states for a big diagnostic laboratory. And then I decided to take the leap and hang out a shingle. And when I started my solo journey, my dream was to write for a living. However, when I started writing for people, I realized that the writing was only one little tiny slice of the pie, and
Right.
that I would write things, but people didn't know what to do with it. And so I thought, well, I can't divorce myself from what I know from my communications and marketing background. So it naturally kind of melded together, and I found myself, fully in communications mode. And then I got to work with beautiful agencies that really mentored me and taught me the business of PR. And it was as if all of my childhood dreams had come together in one career.
Mm.
I had the ability to do strategy, and I got to work closely with people, and I got to still use the business operational side. I got data, and I also got to do the communication. So, this career has been amazing. I've been on my own for 20 years now, and I plan to just keep working. I'll probably go part-time, maybe when I'm 90, maybe a little later.
Well, we know you're a just devoted dog mom. So Belle's bringing those bills and you got to keep going.
That is definitely the case. I have a forever toddler, is what I call her.
Yes.
And I am way over the top dog mom. And so, yeah, she needs me to keep working to keep so that she can continue to live her best life.
Her best life, her lifestyle, her doggy lifestyle. I love it. Well, Karen, I love that you illustrated your path for us because I find again and again, and I bet almost every season, if you listen to the podcast, you hear me talk about the reality is many, many people, particularly if you are the first in your industry, get to their career role or path sometimes in a non-linear way. It's not perfect stepping stones one after another that are all plotted out and orchestrated for you. Many of us are the first in our families to work in public relations or communications. Many of us are the first to be a university graduate, for example, and many other ways we can be pioneers. So I love that you kind of paint that picture for us because it's relatable and validating at the same time. Sometimes what I hear from pros is they feel like their experience isn't as valuable or their perspective isn't as worthy because they didn't have a public relations major. And guess what? I didn't either. So I love that.
That's beautiful. I hope that other people, particularly people of color, because as you
Yes.
said, I didn't know anyone who was in public relations. So I hope that through me that they can see that this career path is possible. And like, as it was for me, it could be for someone else. It could be the career of your dreams where you get to do a multitude of things that you truly enjoy doing every day.
Yeah, it definitely sounded when you were talking about how you got into what you are doing today is that you're very multi-passionate and a lot of these interests were intersecting or began to connect or touch each other. And I think if we are curious and open to what may come next, we will find these very unique, very customized, career paths for ourselves. So I love that you described that. And 20 years of being a solo, that's fantastic. And 2 decades of making this work. I just want to ask up front if you have any tips on that. It's incredible.
Boy, yeah. Sometimes I can't believe it. I believe that you always have to focus on being solution oriented and being optimistic. For me, when things get a little rough, you lose an account or you just are having one of those seasons where you're like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. I like to really be logical with myself and say, what's the worst thing that could possibly happen? And what would you do as an alternative? And I always come back to my worst day is still my best day and better than any day that I would have doing another job. And so you pick yourself up, you turn to your support system. I am a woman of faith, and you just keep going. I tune out a lot of toxic things and negativity because I don't think it's possible to build any kind of business if you are someone who leans to the negative. You've really got to be someone
Mm.
who is hopeful and who is always going to keep your eyes forward focused and realize that the bumps in the road are just temporary. It's a moment in time. It doesn't have to be forever unless you decide to hit that bump and lay down in the road and not get back up.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to be very conscious about what you're consuming because so many people are relying on you when you are independently employed. And I agree with so much of what you said. And I think it's so admirable. And I want to just point out that when you've been doing this for 20 years, you have been riding the waves of technology change of what was, possible and how you even got emails to clients, 20 years ago, right? And now how things are so accessible now, but we have to almost stop ourselves from burning out and overworking in some ways. So I just wanted to give you your flowers, Karen, on that because that's incredible. I'm 10 years in August and it's still, I hear you, right? My worst days I've told folks, "Oh, I've laid on the floor crying," right? Because
Yes.
it was something unexpected happened. You get that tax bill or, client situation doesn't work out that the way you want and has a big impact. And but at least I'm in private and I'm not having to, smile in my cube somewhere going through a heartbreak. So I appreciate that a lot.
Thank
Well,
you.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, and you mentioned Karen seasons, and for sure we love a good theme around here, and we do kind of a seasonal theme for the podcast. And so this season, I really want to center on milestone moments because sometimes, like right now, we'll just draw a line in the sand as far as the date, and we're in 2025, late summer when we're recording this. There's been a lot of unexpected changes in our country here in the U.S., and so I'm very grounded in the idea of during uncertain times, you have to do what you know matters and in the way that you know is timeless and works out. So, milestone moments and leveraging them, I think, have always been important to public relations in the business, right? When there's an organizational anniversary, or when there's a new opportunity. But as a solo, you have to think about that as well. So, centering on milestone moments with that context, tell us about some kind of milestone moment that you experienced or you made happen that was really impactful in your career.
Well, there are several of them. One of the most recent was COVID, COVID-19. So in 2020, when the world shut down and globally, we're just devastated and trying to figure out what was happening, it was one of the best years of my career. So there was just privately, I was curling up in my dog's bed at night and crying my eyes out because of the world around us. But then in the morning, I would wake up and there was so much work to do. And there was so much complexity to that work because you had to help your clients navigate through the situation that none of us had experienced in our personal lifetimes, keeping their audiences encouraged but informed, dealing with clients that were in healthcare and had to shift the way that they delivered care in an instant. All of those things were new things that we had to tackle together, and working so closely with the clients and spending so much time. I was working a lot of hours, which was great because I was busy and I was doing something positive and I was making an impact. So I didn't have the opportunity to sit around during the day and be sad about things because I needed to work and I needed to help my clients and we needed to get their audience through it. So that really changed me and it showed me the resilience of the human spirit. It taught me how to communicate in the toughest times, how to be more nuanced in messaging and how important what we do really is. I mean, during that time, there just everything that we learn, everything that we vow as accredited public relations professionals came into play. There was adhering to ethics, there was fighting mismal and disinformation. It just was a moment that forever stuck with me and changed the way that I view my career. And how much more meaningful it really was than I had given credit for, and how we get to move the needle forward and can truly be a positive voice in the worst of circumstances.
I absolutely agree with your choosing the COVID-19 pandemic as such a huge milestone moment and turning point. It very much was for my career as well. It was very clear to me that business as usual was completely disrupted. And until further notice, that became a phrase in my home because my kids were asking, when do we go back to school? My husband's like, how long can we handle this? Try to teach a kindergartner how to use Zoom when we don't even know how to use it ourselves and have all the equipment we need just yet. Just enduring that showed me how much I could manage, and I found innovative ways to get through some of the really hard times there. And I did love that part of the pandemic where people helped each other out and came together and shared resources and shared, synergy and innovation and kind of pulled everything together. And that was beautiful and a silver lining for me. But I also, like you, was just very proud of being in public relations because I saw us as truth tellers and wayfinders and the ones who were holding up for what was good and right despite what was going on. And so I really call us to action in that same manner here in 2025. Is that in if the buzzword this year I've noticed it seems to be uncertainty, and you know how in 2020 was unprecedented. Well, I think we got used to unprecedented, but the uncertainty of some of the things that have been precedented before, I guess, if that's the word, it's shaken up a lot of people. It's shaken up a lot of people. So I just want us to remember that this is also a milestone moment for many of us to be that advisor and that counselor and that guide and show how public relations can be quite different than other disciplines in communications if you're really committed to doing the good work. And that's when I also got really bold, Karen, because in 2020 I realized, hey, I need to be that representation I've been looking for. And there's no better time because tomorrow's not promised. So I think that's also been an inspiration for me as well.
It just goes to show that out of the worst moments, so much good can happen and we can grow, we can change, we can move forward in big leaps. I had a client that I remember wrote an article about Black Swan events, and it really stayed with me the way that he described like a Black Swan event, like a forest fire, and that things burn away, but the new things grow. And I've held on to that because that's our life. Sometimes we have those seasons where we are in a raging fire and everything that we held dear, all the things that we trusted, the foundation can be really just burned away from beneath us. And we look at the charred remains, but if you only look at the charred remains, you can be stuck there and all you'll see is fire and ravage and damage. But if you're willing to look further and understand that fire also purifies and that it burns away the things that were keeping you from seeing the light, that it burns away the bad so that the good things can grow, you can see it as an opportunity because now there's a fresh start. And, I started my career after becoming a widow. I was a young widow. I'd been married for 10 years. I lost a husband to cancer. I went back into corporate America for a year. But as a changed person with a changed perspective, I realized that it kind of wasn't what I wanted to do anymore. And so it was a tragic time. It was a hard time of grief. But from that moment, because I was willing to look for the light, I found this career and this way of doing this career that has changed everything about my life moving forward.
That's incredible. And thank you for sharing such a vulnerable, part of your story. It's relatable, it's inspirational, and I think that gives people hope. And I love that you mentioned the Black Swan event because I'm thinking about the fires. I'm thinking about the LA fires, and we just had in Central Texas here some just terrible, tragic flooding. Our hearts go out to those in Kirk County, and it, we look for what does this tell us? What should we do? And I think in all of that, true leadership is helping others move through some of the tragedies we experience in life. And I do believe public relations is a big, influential part of such meaningful moments. So thank you for sharing those with us.
Thank you. My heart goes out to those families as well. And thank you so much for saying moving through. Sometimes people want to say move past, but it really is a through. That tragedy doesn't leave you. It's not that you forget your loved ones, but you get through it and you're able to find a way to live with that and continue on. And I agree with you, Melissa. Public relations is such a key part of those moments. And I always, I feel inspired by our profession because I feel like not only are we the truth tellers, but we're the ones that hold up the light. And when there is chaos and tumult and dissension, I truly believe that we as leaders lead the way in lifting up our communities. And when we're all working in synchronization around the same idea, I do believe that it makes an impact, ripple by ripple. And so, even now in these current times when there's a lot of divisiveness and a lot of really negative talk, I look to us to stand above it all and to help people to see another way to become human again and to learn how to communicate with one another, not just in the clients we serve, but to one another, day to day, that we learn to respect and that we start to question some of the rhetoric and some of the negative talk. So we're going to pull us out of this. We are going to get us to the other side.
And through, just like you said, Karen, because you're right. And those moments shape you. I think that is really impressive, the work that you do in our industry, because you are a community builder, you're an organizer, and you lead Solo PR Pro. So tell us more about this professional membership community for those of us who may not be familiar with it.
I love this community. It was actually founded by Kelly Crane, and I was one of the original members. And Kelly and I met on Twitter, which is now known as X, many years ago, and became instant friends. We always say that we call each other this our sister from another mister.
Mhm.
And so I worked with her on Solo PR Pro for many years, and one day she was ready to step down and said, "I think you're supposed to take this." And so I took it over. And it is a community of seasoned and mid-career professionals, although we're starting something to get new people to the profession in. And it's as you said, a professional membership organization that where there's support. And we have a 24/7 community of beautiful, talented people where it's a safe space for everyone. You can ask questions, whether you're struggling with, how to do something or you're looking for a resource. There's always someone in our community that knows. And we have a ton of resources in our archives that you can turn to, templates and tools. And the role that this community fills and the reason it was built is because solos work differently than others. And as you noted, we all want our tribe. We all want to find our people. And so we started this community so that we could find one another and be a support to one another. And it's not, it's not in competition with any of the other groups that are out there. It is just a place for us run by solos that are working as solos that understand exactly what we need, exactly how we work, and that you could tap into that community at any time.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed being a member. And for me, at the beginning, when I came out as independently employed in 2015, I was definitely looking towards mentors. So I want to thank Fran Stevenson for telling me about Solo PR Pro and advised me to consider becoming a member. So it was one of the first, I'd been a PRSA member for a long time, and I still very committed to PRSA. But just like anything else, I think in today's world, it's a plus strategy. It's a multiplication of network and education and resources. So I have found that the private Facebook group for solo PR pros is a safe place, a psychologically safe place, emotionally safe place, a safe place for us to ask questions of each other, share ideas, share opportunities. I've collaborated professionally on campaigns with other members of Solo PR Pro, and it's just been a beneficial part of, I think, this work. Because one piece of advice I think that I would like to share, and I'd love for you to chime in, is to go down your own path sometimes, especially if you don't have someone in your family who's been an entrepreneur or independently employed before full time. It can be very lonely. It can be very scary. And when everything, you are the consultant, you are the bookkeeper, you are the business development manager, you are the customer service rep, you're all things. It can be super taxing and overwhelming, and not everyone can stay as a business owner, and particularly in the first few years. So I think communities like yours, joining one and really engaging with them is a big tip I'd share as far as being able to endure some of those moments of uncertainty of being a business owner.
You described it perfectly. And you're so right. I always tell people that when they're thinking about starting a business, any business, that the reality is if you're starting it for love of the craft, for love of that specialty that you have, you're going to end up doing less of it than you think, that you actually have to run an entire business. And you're right, that can be so scary and overwhelming. So, and not to mention that when you move out of corporate life, you lose those moments that we don't think about, looking over the cubicle at someone or stopping in the cafeteria or the coffee room and asking a question or having a chat or brainstorming. And so Solo PR Pro tries to be that for our community. It's that place where you can look outside of your cubicle and go, hey, do you know what's going on with my computer right now? It's doing this weird thing because, we lose all of those support systems that we just don't think about. And as you said, we become all of those things, and it's impossible to know everything.
Absolutely. And especially in public relations, where we, I would say, having a PR point of view on all things communication, all things comms, that's kind of what we need to do because we have to know enough about advertising, enough about digital marketing, enough about social media strategy and posting and scheduling and editing and tagging and enough of a generalist and also specialize in the counseling, advising, and crisis comms at times. And of course, adding on media relations. And just as I say, it's a mouthful and it is a scope of work that is ever expansive. So having colleagues that you can align with, you can share work with, you can share the load with, who can help you so you can go on vacation, all of that matters. And it helps you for the long haul. So I love that you have that community. And so as president these days, what's keeping you inspired to lead the community?
I think it's the challenges that we face, but also continuing to tap into the next generation of PR practitioners. I get really excited about the enthusiasm and the way that younger people see the world and how they're changing and shaping things. And then, of course, we continue to be faced with new things to learn. Artificial intelligence has definitely dominated headlines in our profession with good reason because companies are turning to it for different reasons, and it's everywhere now. It's part of everything. And so those are new learning opportunities and new chances to look at the things that we do in a brand new light, to reshape some of the systems and some of the practices that we had. And so I stay excited by the change, but I'm also motivated by the hopefulness of the generations that are coming in.
Yeah, agreed. And I want to point out for everyone is that sometimes I will talk with college graduates and they are feeling down because they haven't found that first opportunity, that first full-time opportunity into public relations or the communication field that they were hoping to work in. And then I talk to them about being independently employed. I talk to them about freelancing, another term we know or relate to as far as being a soloist. Until you find that opportunity, you can still work. And here's how I do it. And here's a community you can come plug into to get you some agreements, help you with some resources, help you with some encouragement. But I just wanted to underline that for folks is that it's not just for when you're mid-career or later that you can go off and, be self-employed or independently employed. That's a great way to kickstart your career too, or kind of work through some transitions.
It used to be the rarity when people would come out of college and start a business. That is no longer the case. And I would advise, and you're right, like this community is for anybody, even those who might just be thinking of going on their own and you want a support system, you want to start building that. We welcome you. This is your place. You found your people. But for those that are in college, you can start freelancing while you are still a student. I have seen so many PRSSA students really killing it in business before they even got their degrees. And so they're learning and doing at the same time. And, I love that that's possible today. There's so many more avenues open. And I'm glad that you pointed that out, that they don't have to wait. They can start to put that knowledge to use right away, and they can start to build their own career. And the great thing about Solo PR Pro, and one of the things that Kelly instilled early on, is it's like having an extension of your team. And so you can take on the bigger assignments. You can say yes to the things that scare you because Solo PR Pro provides you with a cushion. If you run into something that you need help with or you don't know or it's really not your area of expertise, there's always someone that can step up and team up with you or partner with you or just answer your questions and walk you through it. And that's something that I think allows us all to be braver than we would be if we were truly all alone trying to figure it out.
Oh, and you just said it, Karen. Bravery is everything. One, in PR, and two, if you are independently employed or running a firm, an agency, whatever that is, right? If you're the ones who are everything to the work in some ways, you have got to be brave. Sometimes people will say, "Oh, you're so confident. How are you so confident?" And I laugh and I say, I'm just brave because if anything else, 2020 taught me I better be bold because I don't know what else is coming and why not, right? Why not me at this point? Let's all just be a little more brave. I love that. And speaking of bravery, we're talking a little bit about perseverance, a little bit about encouragement and the ways that the Solo PR Pro community can come together to help each other out. Certainly been different times. So sometimes when we're navigating all that, we need some inspiration, sometimes to keep going or make a move or try something new. So, how do you feel we can leverage milestone moments to enhance our work or advance our career or even make an important change?
I think lean into milestone moments by doing the thing that you just said, being bold. Take all of the I should, all of the restrictions that we put on ourselves unnecessarily and be creative. I like to look at milestone moments and say, we're here now. What problems need to be solved? Because looking at problems that need to be solved can unlock creative solutions that you can bring to the table and get you excited about moving forward. So, inspiration is always there, but we have to really be willing to look for it. And again, that's just the way I process information. Like, okay, what problems are happening right now, or what problems will result from the time that we're going through, and how can I be a part of the solution? And that could mean, coming up with a different way to approach your work. It could mean pivoting into a new area, but allow yourself to stop putting yourself in a box and to just let your mind go wild. And that does require some quiet space. And I think that that's one thing that the younger generation does a lot better than older generations is that they understand that the grind and the hustle has to be balanced. There's got to be time to yourself. You need time to refresh. And I like to preserve time to think. So I block off times in my calendar where it's nothing but think time, because if I don't get that, how will I allow myself to come up with new ideas, to brainstorm, to solve complex problems if I'm always doing and never just allowing time to be and to think and to let ideas come to me?
I love that. And I also would offer, just because of exactly where I'm at in this moment in time as a working parent, is that you're right. You need some capacity and quiet time and space to be strategic and think, particularly if we're asking people to think about and work on their business versus in their business, right? And I will admit myself, by the time this recording comes out, it is going to be probably just past the 10th anniversary of MVW Communications. And I haven't done the kind of, I think, celebration planning or anniversary planning that I have done for so many clients, Karen. I would say anniversary milestones are like a specialty of ours. And I think part of it is, we had a big book launch in March. We've had so many unexpected disruptions this year. And the capacity I've had and the energy I've had has been reserved strategically to take care of what was most needed. And so I kind of honor that, as well as that there will be times where you have a milestone moment and you should do something important around it, but perhaps life's a little too loud for you to sit down and hear what the calling around that should be. At least for me, right? I feel like sometimes some, ocean wave of creativity comes to me and then, oh, I should write a book or I should do this or that. And right now, it's dull and I can feel it and I own it. And I'm going to do what most matters for the anniversary. And I am offering to you all that we shouldn't, especially in tougher times, beat ourselves up when it's not exactly as we thought we might do it, 5 years before or something.
I, grace is a word that I use a lot, and
Yes.
I practice walking in grace towards others, and, you know, I'm confident in that. But I have to remind myself to walk in grace toward myself because, we are problem solvers. And so we're used to being on and getting it right. But it's funny that you said that I've missed so many of those milestone moments, but sometimes the celebrations have been the quiet that I needed. And you don't want to sometimes plan a whole other thing around
Yes.
your news. So the celebration is that you're still here, you're still standing, and you just need that quiet time to reflect and to just allow yourself the space to breathe and take it in. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a celebration of a different kind. It's not public, it's not over the top. It doesn't have a checklist or a spreadsheet, but it's a celebration nonetheless.
Absolutely. And the celebrations don't all have to come with a big expense. So there's a lot of ways we can give ourselves grace and celebrate our achievements and feel good about that. And there's ways that you can come back to milestone moments in so many smart ways. So I love that you said that, Karen. So, in addition to your work at Solo PR Pro, your work at Words for Hire, and then, of course, your leadership vantage point as being the president of Solo PR Pro gives you a very unique perspective on how people can advance their professional position or even hold themselves back. So, what kind of insights can you share from that unique vantage point?
It's funny, over the years, I've noticed that people really do underestimate their abilities. And I have noticed in this profession too, because this profession seems to attract people that are givers, that are problem solvers, that are really comfortable being in the background. They're not necessarily there to be in the limelight. They love being the helper. And so I've seen people consistently overdo, undercharge, and underestimate themselves. And those are things that I really like to help unlock because I believe that we all should have the business that we want. And that's different for everyone. But don't underestimate yourself. You're so much smarter. You have so much more expertise than you give yourself credit for. There's so much more that you can accomplish, but we always take it down a notch. So we give ourselves like 40% of the credit that we deserve, and there's so much more that we should really be applauding ourselves for, and so many bigger things that we should be going after. And I found that, PR professionals that are on their own, they can always raise their rates, always. And so I always encourage them to raise your rates because whatever you're charging, it's probably not enough.
Oh, I love that. I'm clapping over here because I think it's really, really important that, especially for those in our profession who really are relating to it in a service-based way, is that you do yourself, your family, and those who you could serve a disservice if you don't do the hard work of self-promotion and self-advancement. And so sometimes that is raising your rate. Or maybe it's changing the types of clients that you serve. We've changed our client kind of pie in terms of what sector we've served and whatnot quite a bit in the last year and a half or so. We had never done highway construction before, for example. Well, of course, these skills are transferable, storytelling, angles and PR, points of view are all relevant to this work, community relations, all that. It's been wonderful, but it also really helps save us financially in some ways because the nonprofits were more likely to serve, right, that had been such a big part of who we served, are going through some real hardships this year and funding challenges and uncertainty and just aren't in a place where they can hire as many consultants as they used to. So I think if we're continuing to kind of look at our practice and look at our business and look at ourselves and just have those moments of reality check of how might I be limiting opportunities here? I think it can be very fruitful. And if nothing else, resourceful when times are tough.
I love that you are a living example. You embody this so beautifully because you have just broken through barriers. And I've heard you say, why not me? And that's such a great question to ask. Why not me? So you're someone who really leans in and just moves forward and does things that may seem to someone else bigger than you are, and you've achieved it. And I love that. So I think that you're the perfect person to address this topic because you're doing it. You are the example.
Thank you, Karen. And just for transparency, it doesn't always feel good. Okay. It's messy and it's gritty. And it does feel like, well, this is where the service base comes in. This is how I help others. This is how I kind of light the way, as you mentioned before, Karen, or inspire others that, hey, if Melissa can do it and she's not perfect, then I can figure it out. And I think that relatability can be very helpful to others. So I think we should all just be a little braver and give it a shot, right? Give whatever it is you're dreaming of a shot. And little by little, it can come together.
Absolutely. And I think that that also means that you need to take the time and do the work of ensuring that you're in a healthy place and healthy mentally, physically, spiritually, because your perspective will change depending on your mindset. When your mindset is healthy, you're not threatened by the accomplishments of other people. You're inspired by it. When you are in an unhealthy place and you're feeling insecure, you can see that through a very different lens. You can see that as competition or reasons to continue to tell yourself that you're not good enough. So I think that's important. Address it. If you're feeling that way, then you need to address it. Maybe that means taking a break from social media, talking to a therapist, and just getting yourself to a place where your mindset is different so that you can move forward and so that you can be inspired and use that and be fueled by the accomplishments of others rather than pushed down.
Yes, absolutely. Super helpful advice. And comparison can get us riled up, as we say, in my parts of the country, but it can also make us feel very down if we're not a good space to kind of think through it consciously of what we're feeling, right? So I love that. Well, Karen, this has been a great conversation, and I'm all about these conversations, but I like to ask my listeners their thoughts on this concept I have on smart talk. So, what does smart talk mean to you?
Smart talk means wisdom to me and it's sharing. So it's that mutual conversation between one or two or more people where you're sharing wisdom and experiences and being respectful and learning from that. So, in one word, I would sum it up as just wisdom. It's not, that you have a better degree or you've gone to school more years or you've been at a profession. It's the wisdom that you accumulate from your life's experiences.
Yes, and let's share those wise words with each other and not hold that back because those are gifts. We have a lot of data and noise everywhere, but true wisdom, that's so valuable and it just compounds in value, especially these days. I love it. Well, Karen, this has been delightful and super deep conversation, which are the ones I really, really love. I'm sure our listeners want to engage with you, learn more about Words for Hire, learn more about Solo PR Pro. So, what's the best way for listeners to connect with you?
You can find me on social media channels. And it's always my name, Karen Swim, SWIM, just like swimming in a pool. And I would love for everybody to go to the soloprpro.com website and check us out. If you are a solo that's out there and you didn't know that there was another tribe for you, or if you're just somebody that's thinking about it, that would be amazing. We would love to chat with you, welcome you, and share resources with you.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll see me in there and you can swim in Karen's wisdom along with us. So, thank you, Karen, for sharing your knowledge with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. As always, Melissa, I leave our conversations a better person than when I entered.
There's no better talk than that. Thanks to our listeners for joining me for today's episode. We love covering communication topics that elevate our industry practice. If you'd like to go deeper, you can work with me as a coach, trainer, consultant, or hire my firm, MVW Communications, for strategic communication and public relations services. My industry books, Smart Talk Public Relations Essentials All Pros Should Know, and Latinas in Public Relations, Shaping Communications, Communities, and Culture, are also available for purchase on Amazon. Grab your copy there and please leave us a supportive review. Book reviews and podcast reviews help more aspiring or hardworking pros find our resources. As always, think smart and communicate smart. And I'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Smart Talk series. If you learned something or enjoyed our conversation, share it on social media or send to a friend. To learn more about this and other communication topics, visit mvw360.com. That's mvw360.com.